So please know that we are recording this and it might be released publicly. So if you don't want to be recorded, you can just turn your camera off, but I'm sure there won't be anything too controversial. So my name is Joyce Raimondo, and I'm the education coordinator at the Pollock Krasner House and Study Center in East Hampton. We are a national landmark in New York. And today we're exploring, the name of our program is Art Blossom. So this is part of our nature series. And we're going to explore different approaches to the flower, okay? So go to pkhouse.org to see other programs that we offer about various aspects of nature, okay? So we're going to start off with a screen share. I'm going to show you some images, and I'm going to invite some interpretations of what we see. Now, I need to give you a little disclaimer because this is such a huge topic in art, as I'm sure you all realize. The painting a flower like a vase of flowers can be painting a still life. Painting flowers can be painting nature, painting a garden. This is a huge topic. So I just touched upon some key stylistic points and some of the most famous artists who paint flowers. So I hope this makes you want to learn more. So of course, let's start, and I broke this into various themes. And we're going to start with the garden as art. So, of course, the garden itself, the creation of a garden, is an art form, can be. And we're going to look at one of the most famous artists who not only created a garden, he also used the creation of the garden to paint. And of course, what comes to mind is Claude Monet's Garden at Giverny in France. This was a small village outside of Paris, and it was Monet's last home. And he lived there from 1883 until 1926 when he died. And he made some of his greatest works, of course, at the garden. Monet had always been a gardener, and he was very knowledgeable about gardening. And he set everything up in Giverny to not only layer the times when these different flowers would blossom, but also to create an actual color palette in the garden, which he could then also paint from, okay? So when we look at a painting like this, what do you notice about this painting? What comes to your mind? Anyone?
Lavender field.
What's that, Sahir?
Lavender field.
Yes, the lavender field. You notice, obviously, the colors of the flowers are very vibrant. But he is also emphasizing the vibrancy of the colors. Quick color lesson. He's using opposite colors. Opposite colors on the color wheel are red and green, orange and blue, purple and yellow. Next to each other, these colors vibrate and make each one very, very, very vibrant. Sometimes you could have it's also called complementary. You could have complementary colors that are not exact opposites. They're somewhat complementary, right? So we have a purple against a yellowish green. It's not an exact complement, but the yellow juxtaposed with the purple will make it very vibrant. On top of that, we have blue next to orange, which is going to make the color pop. So with Impressionist painting, the color becomes very, very vivid. Also, what do we notice here? He's not painting every little detail of the flower or the leaves. He's indicating where the flowers are in the garden and the leaves by little dabs and swatches of color. He's using brush strokes. The artist's mark becomes very, very evident, doesn't it? We can see how he moved his brush, right? Also, overall, the garden is becoming more abstract because we really can't see the detail. We can't exactly even see where the garden starts and ends, right? It's like we're zooming into it and he cropped it so it goes right off the rectangle. That makes it also appear more abstract. Now, Monet was very interested in painting the changing effects of light, the changing effects of weather, time of day, season, and atmosphere on color and light. So you will often see in Monet's work that he paints one image over and over and over again at different times of year, day, and weather. This is his famous Japanese footbridge. So I'm going to show you various interpretations based on different seasons and different times of day. And if you want to, if your heart is feeling sad or you're feeling, you know, just off, to me, it's like when I look at these paintings by Monet, these paintings are pure joy. They really are just pure aesthetic beauty. He's painting the sensuality of life through the color and through nature. And sometimes in today's technological world, we miss this, right? We're in concrete places and we're in malls and we're in a car, you know, things like that. So this is a good reminder too, to get back to nature. So here's his Japanese footbridge. And we see, our talk is on flowers, we see the water lilies in the pond, which he created. And the water lilies are a flower that grow in a pond. Now in this one, we see, look at the difference. In this one, it becomes all like reddish orange. You see that? Monet had cataracts, and so he started to see color with this brownish orange tone because of his eye problem. And so at this time, we see his paintings become a little less detailed, and we see the color palette changes, and some of them even become very, very abstract. This isn't, what's that?
Yeah.
Okay, can everybody mute, please? Thank you. So here's another view of the Japanese footbridge, and also some of these you see are more detailed than others. Here's the water lilies we see. Now what's happening here is he is going to make the water lily pond become the focus of the painting. And there's many versions of this, and it's going to become increasingly abstract. So by cropping and not showing perspective, it starts to make the canvas look almost flatter, like as if it's all tilted upwards. And you see all these beautiful colors. Here, we don't have that reddish green. Here we have this undertone of ultraviolet. And the reason for that is because he did have cataract surgery on one eye because he was afraid. And as a result, he had his color then became distorted, that he saw more of a purplish tone when he looked at things. So we don't usually think of a great artist as having like a visual impairment that would impact their art in this way. But in fact, sometimes these visual impairments or physical challenges will actually be a spark for creative breakthroughs. And here's Monet's famous water lilies, which this does not do justice to it. This is huge. These are mural-sized paintings that are at the Museum of Modern Art, and they cover the entire wall. And the two side panels are shown not flat like this, but they're tilted so that the entire room is filled with these water lilies. And the paintings become, even though we can still recognize that they're water lilies, they become more about the color and the brushstroke. And in that sense, they become more abstract. Any questions or ideas? If you can get to MoMA, it's great to see these in person, the Museum of Modern Art. So let's take a look at some bouquets and vases. This is a painting by Laura Wheeler Waring, and these are not in chronological order. Laura is an an American-born painter who is a Black painter who's painting during what's called the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance was the cultural highlight of Harlem in the 1910s to the mid-1930s. It was, you could say, the golden age of Black culture in literature, music, performance, and visual arts. And I love this portrait because, well, I'm not going to tell you what I think when you look at this. Woman with a bouquet, what do you, when you look at this woman, what kind of feeling do you get from her? How would you describe her? Just quick, spontaneous, there's no right or wrong.
Sadness.
Anyone? Joyce?
Sadness.
And
So
what makes
sad.
What makes you say that?
Her face looks drawn out and the downward looking, and just the casual way that the flowers are laid on her. She's often thought somewhere else.
Interesting theory. Anybody else?
Makes me
I
smile.
think I think she looks very competent and like she really knows what she's doing, and she's very proud of having those flowers.
What makes you say that?
Well, her hand is against her hip, and she's kind of like a graceful smile on her face, I think. And the way she's sitting up really nice and straight just looks like it's a good day for her.
So her body posture, her body language says she's confident. Anyone else?
I see it as the other person said, she made up her mind. She's defiant. She's not going to change her mind with her arm akimbo like that. It's like, I've made up my mind and I know what you're up to.
Right. This is a great portrait, isn't it? Because we can wonder about this portrait. We can wonder about this woman, and we could see it in so many different ways. When I looked at it, I thought, this is like a really strong woman. And yet maybe the bouquet of flowers shows that she has a soft, delicate side as well. That's what I thought. But visually,
She's ready to go.
she's ready to go. I'm sure
I
we've
can
all
see now what the other woman are talking about. I didn't see that before. That there's a like kind of almost a smile, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, go ahead. One more.
I see she could potentially be sassy and wink at you at the same time. It's almost like she's watching a group of people and saying, yeah, okay, I got it, but I'm here, and I'm great, and I've got my eye on you. I think she looks smart and ready to go.
Yeah, we could do a whole class just about this portrait, right? Make up stories about
From a
this.
guy who wants to be her beau and she's saying, I'm not into you.
But I'll take the flowers. Now get out of here. Yeah. No, I'm teasing. Okay. So what I love about this is you have the real flowers, portrayed in her hand. And then you also have the floral motif on her dress as a decorative pattern. So we're going to see this. You see this a lot in art, where the floral pattern is used as an element in the dress, in maybe a tablecloth, in wallpaper, right? So that's something to think about when you make your own. And of course, this idea of a bouquet is very symbolic. So this one is by Pablo Picasso, and this is a symbol of peace for Picasso, and he made it for a peace demonstration that was in Stockholm in 1958. I'm not sure what the demonstration specifically was about, but here we have two hands reaching for the bouquet. Clearly, it's highly stylized, right? Eliminating all detail. And that's what's fun, to look at these different versions of how the artists interpret the bouquet. So very famous is Marc Chagall, the painter of, you could say, lovers and bouquets. He's painting himself with his wife, Bella, he was deeply in love with. And you see the couple in many, many of his paintings, but it has this dreamlike quality. Well, of course, they're floating. Why are they floating? Because when you're in love, you feel like you're floating, right? And you could see it's the birth, and he has the gift, the cake there, and he's given her this bouquet, which is often, of course, a symbol of love. So you can see there's, I don't even know, like probably hundreds of paintings, lithographs, and drawings where he paints this couple with floral arrangements in various ways. But here I love this because also just the sheer red of the rose becomes an element. So when we think of not just the rose, of course, is a symbol, a romantic symbol of love, but it's also the color is the color of passion, right? It's the color of love too.
I like the little cherries in the bottom. So the little red, I think it might be cherries or.
Yeah,
Just.
it's really beautiful. Here again, we have complementary colors, the red and green, so they're so bright. Now, this is a completely different approach. Rene Magritte is a surrealist artist. So he's painting from his imagination, and he does several versions of the rose, and he's very, very interested in investigating the imagery and meaning behind the rose. This is one of his famous paintings. It's called Blow to the Heart. So what's going on with this one? He says, after completion of the research, it can be easily explained that the rose is scented air, but it is also cruel. Now, what does he mean by that? Or what, when you look at this painting, why would you have a dagger with a rose?
The thorns of the rose. It's beautiful, but it also hides a dangerous side.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps he had a lost love.
Could be lost love.
The
Anybody
broken
else?
promises of love, the broken promises of love, the heartache.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Now, you're going to, of course, we're all going to interpret this partly based on our own ideas and experiences. At first, when I saw this, my immediate reaction was, oh, this is about like, heartbreak, love. But then when I was reading about the broader meaning behind it, its ambiguity, it also kind of speaks to the idea that everything beautiful in life is fleeting. So we kind of attach ourselves to the flower or to an object or to an idea or to anything. And there's the flip side, there's the duality, right? Which is there's going to be loss, right? So you could also see it in a much broader way, this ambiguity between love and pain. And these are others, this is called surrealism. This is off the topic of, I realize, of the bouquet, but I just wanted to put this in here to show you different interpretations of the rose. One is by Magritte, one is by Salvador Dali. And the surrealist artists are basically pulling from within their dream imagery, their imagination, their subconscious, their unconscious, right? And sometimes they're juxtaposing things in a way that don't entirely make sense. It also has to do with the irrational. And then we can look at the picture and we can wonder in an open-ended way what it means to us. So the artist is exploring imagination, and we're actually exploring our own imagination when we look at these pictures. Now, next up, of course, is Van Gogh's very famous sunflowers. So Van Gogh is painting these sunflowers, and there's 7 versions in total of the sunflowers. And he starts off, it's an experimentation of color. He's using the contrast becomes more vivid, the colors become more vivid, right? And the contrast becomes more stark as he's recreating these sunflowers. Some of them also become highly expressive. So here, for example, on the left, you have yellow with a golden color. Because those colors are similar, there's not as much contrast, right? On the other one, you have the golden, which is very warm, next to a very, very cool color, right? So it makes the flowers kind of pop out more. Now, according to Van Gogh, he thought of the sunflower as a symbol for gratitude. And he had in mind that these three paintings would be displayed together with the mother in the woman rocking the cradle with sunflowers on both sides. And this would be a symbol of a mother who has gratitude. And this one I love. What do you make of this one in terms of feeling or ideas? Anything? What do you notice on this one? What's unusual?
It seems to be, there's movement. Like it feels like the blue is moving around and the petals are actually feel like they're moving in the wind.
Yeah, there's
It's a
a
great
lot of
paint.
movement. And you see the background, the blue, all those brush strokes also are moving. Van Gogh is a post-impressionist. He comes after Monet. He was aware of the Impressionists, but he pushes the idea further by really pronouncing the brushstroke. Look how clear it is. Look at that blue. Look at all those yellow lines. It's so beautiful, right? And also, it's just so beautiful. The sunflower is not shown in a vase. It's not shown going upward. It's shown going down. It's as if the vase was knocked over or the sunflower is dying, but also filled with life. It's highly expressive, isn't it?
It's
It
beautiful.
expresses, it's beautiful. It expresses imagination. It expresses emotion, and it expresses motion itself. So
It's kind of like there's beauty in death.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Look at all the different marks that he makes in this one too. All the center of the sunflower, all the patterns, right? And the gestural marks of the brushstroke for the petals and how they move throughout the painting. This is the beginning of modern art. But eventually the artist says, we don't need to paint a sunflower anymore. We can just paint the energy and the motion itself. So this is a painting of Paul Gauguin, who was Van Gogh's friend. And when Gauguin, the story goes, came to visit Van Gogh in Arles, Van Gogh decorated his room with sunflower images. And later on, Gauguin made this painting of Van Gogh painting the sunflowers. And this one is William Henry Johnson. I like this one, has sunflowers, totally different approach. William Henry Johnson is also a Harlem Renaissance artist. And it's a very, very different than Van Gogh. How is this really different than Van Gogh in terms of painting style? Anybody?
It's very flat. There's you don't see the paint strokes quite as much as you would in a Van Gogh, of course. It's a naive style, so very simple. Even though Van Gogh's sunflowers were very simple, he makes them into this very complex thing. And yet the sunflowers here are just as representative as his own sunflowers.
Yeah, what's amazing is that this artist is he's flattening out the canvas. And as you said, you might be able to see a little brushstroke in real life, but basically it's more graphic, right? But
Yeah.
look at the way he's so sensitive, how he paints those sunflowers and the leaves. You can see the slight tilt of it just by the shapes that he's using. But what I love about William Henry Johnson's paintings, he's painting his mother. You see in a lot of his paintings, he's using the floral motif in her dress as a graphic element. And it's really amazing how, see, like, for example, that paint, the flower on the bottom of a dress that's off to the side. He paints it just so that it actually gives the feeling like the dress is turning without using light and shadow. You see that? And I just think they're really fun to look at all these patterns. So these are examples of his vases where you see stylistically the one on the left, he's paring it down to simple shapes. And colors. He's eliminated much more simplified and about color and shape, doesn't it?
One dimensional as opposed to Van Gogh's three-dimensional.
It's much flatter, yeah. Now, it's not completely flat because sometimes the red will pop off the canvas. It'll sort of give the illusion like it's coming forward. But yes, generally speaking, because it's a shape, shapes tend to be read as something that's flatter. Now, here we have Henry Matisse, and I wanted to find an image where the floral image is the actual plant, but then it goes into the tablecloth is a floral image. The whatever that is behind it, that piece of cloth is also a floral image. And then the blanket on the couch. So again, you'll see this a lot in art where you have these patterns that are throughout the painting and become a graphic element. It's a floral motif. Now, abstract art, the artist begins to really eliminate the details and the scene object. So here's Matisse later on doing his cutouts where he paints papers and he calls it drawing with scissors. There's no sketching. He cuts out these shapes and then he glues them to the surface to create these beautiful cutout collages. These were done in his older year when he was confined to either a wheelchair or bed, and his assistant helped him with these collages by pinning them to the wall and moving them around, and he would direct her of how to arrange them. But this one, we have a feeling of flowers with the colors and also with the movement, right? So in a bouquet like this one, well, right? The flowers are going upwards. This is going upwards and out. And here we have Matisse, they're upward and out. Everything is springing forth, right? You could say it's a garden of color. And here he's using the floral element as a decorative motif, literally for decoration. Now, here we have George O'Keeffe, who's, of course, very beloved and very famous. And what does she do to make these flowers abstract? Anyone want to speak to that? Why does the rose become more abstract looking?
Because she goes right to the center. She goes right into them, and she's drawing the minute of the flower.
Yeah, what's interesting, Joyce, is it's as if you're in the flower. You're like so close up that you're like an insect crawling in the flower. And at the same time, she enlarges the flower. These are large canvases. She makes them huge. They're bigger than life. She changes the scale. And then she goes right off the edge of the canvas. You don't see the edge of the petals, right? And she's also simplifying the shape. So it's part from observation, but she's simplifying the shapes. She's simplifying the colors. She's changing the colors. And it also creates not just an image that we could read as a floral image, but it also has an expressive quality. So I'm going to throw out a question. Anyone out there, when you look at the rose, what kind of words come to your mind? Anyone? What feeling?
Beauty,
What is that?
beauty, beauty.
Sensuous.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Anyone else?
Evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Mysterious.
Mm-hmm.
A journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's emphasizing the spiral, right? The spiral is like a journey. Some people see it as a very comforting journey. Other people sometimes say it looks a little bit like frightening. It depends on how you look at it. Now, how about the one on the left is very different? What words would you use to describe that one?
It's opening up, revealing,
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
flowing.
Hopeful.
Uplifting.
Uh-huh, yeah. Uplifting.
Enlightenment.
Yeah, it has an upward movement, right? So again, she's emphasizing the movement, right?
It looks like layers of silk, like a whole lot of silk scarves, which you could imagine moving in a slight breeze. That's
Good
to me.
point. When we're talking about flowers, you know, like you say, silk, it's a texture, the delicateness, the smoothness of a flower. So that's part of how the artists are conveying the image as well. The delicateness. Now, some people interpreted George O'Keeffe's paintings as vaginal imagery, but she said, no, that's not my intention. I'm painting flowers, you know, in an abstract way. She said, I'm paraphrasing, most people are so busy, they don't see a flower. Slow down and you know, observe a flower.
The
So here-
story that I, oops, sorry.
Yeah,
There
go
was
ahead.
The story, I heard a story when I went to see a show of her work in Toronto that said her husband had recently, she used to do a lot of architecture paintings in New York City, and her husband had released a number of photographs that he had taken of her in the nude when they were early on in their marriage, which were never meant to be shown in public, but he did that. And of course, then the men in the world at the time, who were the ones who primarily went to the shows in the galleries, got all excited by this particular aspect of her work. So she decided, I'm going to make something that's so in your face, you can't miss it. I'm going to paint flowers so big that you have to be able to see them. It can't just be about black and white images of me naked. And so she came up with these in response to the leering eyes of the gentleman. And of course, then it was misinterpreted as being sexual.
I've never heard that story.
Ah,
The story that I heard was more that Alfred Stieglitz showed her actually these works, not these exact ones, the floral images without her permission in his gallery. And he didn't have her sign off on it. I'm not sure if it was the actual nude photos. That, you know, but that's something to clarify. Okay.
okay. Just throwing it out
Yeah,
there.
could be. No, could be. I've never heard of that. That's how I heard the story, but something, I mean, for both of us to clarify, or anyone who's on here. So this is Lee Krasner. Now, similar to O'Keeffe, right? She's abstracting the flower here. We could see a rose. We could see, it appears to be a rose to me. We could see what appears to be like leaves, but it's very different than O'Keeffe's and everything we've seen. This is abstract expressionism. You could say it's like a physical release of energy. The artist mark becomes much more free, much more physical. We see smearing and scraping and brushing, right? And the whole composition of the painting, it's an all over composition, right? It goes right off the edge, all these patterns. There's no really central figure. And some of Lee's paintings, like this one, is even more abstract, but you could say it has a floral imagery. It does suggest that. And again, this is all over composition, right? There's no foreground, there's no background, there's no narrative. It's not like she's looking at a flower and painting it. The floral imagery is coming directly from her inner life, right? She says, painting in which the inner and outer man are inseparable, transcends technique, transcends subjects, and moves into the realm of inevitable. Inner and outer are inseparable. Her inner life is becoming a physical object, but it's like being one with the painting. There's no preconceived idea. Joan Mitchell is the second wave of abstract expressionism. And again, she's painting the essence of the garden or the flower. Color, light, movement, energy, brushstroke, line. And she lets the paint drip. She lets the smear show. These are called action painters. We can clearly see their movement. Now, I think to me, it's pretty obvious to see the connection between this and Monet's painting, right? But Monet, you could still see the garden. You could recognize it as clearly a garden. But here, that freedom Monet had is pushed even further. And in fact, Joan Mitchell traveled from New York to Paris and eventually moved to France. So we see a lot of her, the influence of the, the light in France influencing her painting. This is Elma Thomas. She's a color field painting, and she's painting, again, not the details of the flower. It's like the light is coming through as you're looking at the flowers, and she's reducing it to color, pure color. And she does a lot of these mosaic-like paintings where you have these swatches of color, and they're very intricately painted, the amount of space that's in between each dab, the varying thickness of the paint, and even the edges of each little dab are very varied, and they're really beautiful. This one also, I love it. It's not only like the light is coming through, I get that sense of like maybe a little mild flickering wind coming through the garden. So this is our final, coming up to our final images here. Pop art is short for popular culture. The pop artists draw from popular culture to create high art. So Andy Warhol sees a photograph in Modern Photography magazine and uses that as the basis for this series of flower prints that he does. And there's many, many versions of these floral images. And this is very different than someone like Lee or the artist that we looked at, because in some cases, Andy Warhol is not actually painting the painting or making the print with his own hands. He has what's called the factory, and he has all these people working for him, making the prints. And so it's not like it's this deeply expressive personal statement that he's making, right? He's drawing upon really the technologies of printing to create these images. And also he's making the image from images that were printed in the media. What's interesting is prior to making these flowers, which are pretty easy to look at, they're pretty pleasant, he did some very, very difficult subjects that he would draw from the newspapers. So this is a big turn for him. Here's Roy Lichtenstein, also a pop artist, and he does this, you could call it a cartoon style, but in these very large paintings or prints. And he says, I'd see something like a way of doing a Monet through just dots that would look like a machine-made impressionist painting, right? So sometimes he's mimicking past artists, but he's doing it in a way where it could look like it was printed in a newspaper or a magazine. At that time, all those little dots, they used to print with what were called Bende dots. So you see that pattern in a lot of Lichtenstein's paintings. And I'm just going to share with you, I don't paint flowers, but then it occurred to me, I did make some art using flowers. I use the actual flower, and I would make these, I would dry the flower out on the right and then cut it and stitch it together to make these little figures. And then the one on the left, I use tissues that I stain with tea, sewed them together, and then just put those little flowers. And I was working with the idea of fragility, of building something up that would be extremely fragile and vulnerable. And then yesterday I went into a school and I said, look at these kids' artworks. And I thought this was so good. The teacher did, I thought you might want to enjoy this. The teacher did a lesson on the sunflowers with the kids. And I love the way they all made them different. And they use all these different techniques, dots, cotton swabs, little stippling, little brush stroke, different arrangements. I just thought that was super fun.
They're beautiful.
Aren't they good? Yeah, she's an amazing teacher. So let's take some inspiration from these artists and these children. And let's see what we can come up with. Now, where do you get started? I would suggest pick an approach. Okay, so do you want to do something completely abstract? Do you want to actually look at a flower? Okay, if you're looking at a flower and you want to draw what you see, you can simplify it. Or a nice way to draw a floral arrangement is to use a technique known as contour drawing. So contour drawing, and I don't have a flower actually in front of me, but basically you would look at the flower and take your pencil and go very, very slowly along the edges. So let's say I was drawing a rose. I would just do this so slowly. Just follow your eye along the different petals there. And then you will come out with the image of a flower that's not so stereotypical. It'll be based on really what you were looking at. And you just let that line lead from one line to the next. And that's called contour drawing. Okay? Or you can do something that's highly stylized, right? So, or expressive, or maybe there's a flower that's near and dear to you, or you want to paint from a photo. Does anybody need help getting started with specific instructions? What I'm going to do here is I'm making my abstract garden. So I'm doing this out of my head. So I started this with watercolor, and I am just going to let lines and colors flow in my abstract garden here. But if someone wants specific instructions, please just feel free to ask. Okay? Or if you need tips on color mixing or anything. When Lee painted, she said, I surrender. I don't will the painting. So she would just sort of let go and see what comes out. That doesn't mean you don't pay attention with this type of art. Just sort of trust the process. If you're working with watercolor, it's a good idea to have 2 containers of water. So this one is all dirty. I'm cleaning off my brush, but you should have another one that has clean water you can mix in with your paints. And when it gets really disgusting like this, also if you're working with acrylic, freshen up water when it gets disgusting, okay? I'm gonna do that. So let's see, is there anyone who would like to share? Barbara would? So tell us about this one, Barb. Can you unmute?
Am I muted?
No, no, go ahead. You're fine.
Ah, it's kind of a flower that's fading out in the distance.
That's really beautiful. Very nice the way you use is that watercolor?
Yes.
Yeah, very nice touch. Did you do that from observation or from your head?
From observation, I did this one yesterday of the flowers on my table.
Oh, that's so good, Barb.
Thank you. And so this is one of the flowers today. Well, three of them actually, but they're all on one stem that are starting to die.
Very beautiful the way you did the leaves on the bottom that are just sort of like wilting a little bit, but the way you use the paint and it's fading.
Yeah.
Brown looks like it's drying up a little bit.
Yeah.
Really good job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And Sherry says, so pretty, sort of Asian inspired. Yes. And Linda says, I'm at the college for an art show. Oh, good, Linda. Where you want to show us your art? Linda, where are you? Are you around your art? Why don't you show us? Oh, great. Very nice, Linda. You know, I like
And my images are in the art show right now, but that doesn't open up until 5. I have the watercolor collage poppies, and I did a 3D under the sea with Bristol paper.
congratulations.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Take some pictures and show us at our next Zoom, okay?
Okay.
What is Bristol paper?
Bristol paper is where you make things with
Yeah,
3D design.
yeah. And also it's a heavier weight paper. It comes
Yeah.
in, it's sometimes called Bristol board. So
Oh.
if
Yeah,
stores such as Michael's, you can see there's section of pads and you'll see all the variety. Very nice, Linda. Nice to see you. I really give you credit, Linda, that you're waiting for the show and you came online and you're making art. So good job.
okay, thank you.
How about Judith Bravella? Hi, Judith.
Hello. I also did a sunflower and I used my left hand and my right hand because I didn't want to feel self-conscious.
That's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Very nice. The way you got the tilt of the flower and very smart. Sometimes we have to play these little tricks to loosen us up. So very good. Beautiful.
Thank
Very
you so
nice
much.
drawing.
Thank you.
How about Joyce in Canada? Joyce, do you want to show us any? Oh, I love it, Joyce. That's beautiful. That's good.
It's
That's
tulip.
I know. The
Thank
way
you.
you that's really beautiful. The way you
And those are the stems and the
Okay.
leaves are there too.
I love that one, Joyce. The way you use the complementary colors and the way you just made very simple marks to indicate the tulip. It's really good.
I have no
And-
idea how to use watercolor. So I figured, well, I should start doing it in my abstract class because it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, it happens to be really beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh,
I
we have
spent
also-
like half an hour doing a tulip shape so I could fill it in before class. And I thought, it's an abstract class. I can use whatever I want.
Yeah, but what makes it beautiful is the way with such simple little marks, you got the feeling of the tulip and the delicacy of the petal. So we have all these projects for you, Joyce. Barbara says it would make great wallpaper, kitchen wallpaper. Martin says amazing. And someone else says, wait, what else? Oh, and it would make beautiful fabric, which I
Thank you
agree.
so much. This was my, this was the tulip that I was, that started the show.
Ah,
I took,
I'm glad you showed us that because I was thinking that before. Sometimes when you want to abstract something so that you just don't make sort of stereotypical marks over and over again, it can be really helpful to have some reference, but use it as a springboard.
Thank you
And
so
so
much.
here, how about so here in London? Oh, I love that.
love
So
that.
that's
very loose.
beautiful.
So
Very nice.
spring-like.
Much beautiful.
It's really good. It's so delicate and yet like the leaf part is delicate, but the flowers are so confident. It's really beautiful. And it has a childlike quality, but it's also sophisticated how you painted it.
Thank you.
Good job, Sohir.
It's very life affirming,
Yeah.
very life affirming. Beautiful, Sohir.
Thank you.
And you get the compliments are coming in. Sherry says a soft breeze is blowing through the lovely flowers. E says nice. Martin says beautiful. Awinda says lovely. Good job. And how about Amy Werber? Oh, that's beautiful, Amy. Very
Oh.
nice.
Yeah.
I'm experimenting right now.
Amy, if you're getting feedback, you might have two devices on, and that might be why you're getting feedback. It's echoing. It's echoing. Okay, yeah, we don't understand what you're saying because there's an echo, but that is so beautiful the way you did the sort of bursting forth of the flowers with the brush strokes. Very nice.
Beautiful.
Very nice. Yeah, these are, and Rosemary and Linda say, love it, beautiful. Good job. Really good job. And when I say good job, I probably shouldn't use the word good because it's like, well, what does good mean? But Martin just said good. I think a better word might be something like some of them show a lot of sensitivity, that you're making these loose marks and yet they relate to the expression of growth. Right? It has an expressive quality to it and it's clean, it's fresh. The message is very, very fresh. It looks very authentic. That's why I'm saying good job. Okay. And somebody just said, Judith said, so fresh. Okay. There we go. How about Phyllis?
Hello.
Hang on,
Hi.
let me- yeah, let me-
I was
Yeah.
influenced by Georgia O'Keeffe, so I tried to do a close-up of my plant, the succulent.
Very nice.
This is the plants, and then I try to make it like really go into detail. I mean, not into, like I try to abstract the center part of the flower of the succulent.
Well, you did abstract it. You didn't try, you did. And
Gorgeous.
I love you push the colors, which we were discussing. You made them more vivid than they are in real life. I love the way you have different kinds of marks, the soft, the more scribbly mark. Now, one thing is when you make a painting, the background, so to speak, or the white is just as important as the entire painting. So you might want to, I'm just throwing this out there. You have a lot of empty space, which is not a bad thing, but it almost looks a little random. Like it's
Oh
just,
yes, I haven't
right?
finished it.
Yeah.
I will
So
put.
okay, either activate the space or cut the paper. You can crop it in. You can always cut the paper. You're allowed to do that with a straight edge. You get what I'm saying? Because it's interesting as you're showing it in Zoom, you see how it's more cropped? It actually looks good when it's more cropped, I think. You see that? Maybe not that much, but you could play around with that. Just a thought, I'm just throwing it out there, okay?
Thank you.
Play around with the background and the edges. Sometimes if you're afraid to ruin it, you could always take a color on another piece of paper and just place it there to see like, what does this color look like before you actually paint it in?
Yes.
Anyone else? Sue? Very nice, Susan. So you're working in the vein of George O'Keeffe?
Yes, yes, I am. Any suggestions? You know, I'm certainly not finished. It takes time. But
I know. Are you working with watercolor?
yes, and ink.
No, I think it's beautiful. One suggestion I would make, and I know this is tricky with watercolor, but you're doing it piece to piece to piece. But you really don't know what the whole is going to look like.
You're right.
And so I would lay out where your lights, at the very least, where are your lights and darks going to go throughout? Or where are you going to have some yellow? Put it as like a very thin wash just here and there. So you kind of can see the whole composition rather than just going from piece to piece.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
What about the ink? Should I not use the ink or use the ink?
No, there's no shoulds. A lot of artists use ink with watercolor. It's a beautiful technique. No, I think that's really a nice technique. And play with it, experiment with it. So no, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else? How about Jules? Oh, Jules, you always amaze me. Wait. That,
Oh, wow.
Jules, that is so beautiful. The way you made the yellow. Are you, oh my God.
Oh, I love
That
it.
is so good. You made a rose and you gave it two little thorns. So, so detailed.
You
The
should
color-
hang them right next to each other. They're
Beautiful.
beautiful.
That is really good, Jules. The color of that rose is so red. It's just so bright and beautiful. You like it?
Yes.
Yeah. Very nice. Thank you for sharing that, Jules.
You're welcome.
Really, really appreciate that. Anybody else? Anybody new who didn't get a chance? New to the class?
I'll go.
And oh, Ellen, great. Welcome.
So I use pastel.
Oh,
Very
that's cool.
Very nice, Ellen. Now, look at the way, I like the way the edges, you have some outline, but it's not like a bold outline that just is like one line. You have all, with the purple pastel, you have all these different types of lines. Some are thin, some are thick, jagged, soft, dark, and that's makes it really beautiful. Not an easy thing to do with pastels. The way no, that's a complex subject you're painting.
Thanks.
Very nice.
Lovely.
And Judith says, so organic. Is that an iris?
Yes, yes.
Very nice. And we do, you know, of course, Van Gogh is famous for his irises as well. Now, I'll tell you what, everybody, we only have a few more minutes. For those of you who have never been here, I'm just going to give you a little peek into the studio and tell you that you can come back for other programs we have. So go to pkhouse.org to sign up for the other programs. This is where Pollock made his drip paintings. And after his death in 1956, Lee painted in here, placing her paintings on the wall. So we have other tours where we go into more detail with this. And then I'll, you know, about the history, I'll show you the property. A little chilly today. Let's see if there's any blossoms out here just for fun. We have these little purple flowers. Can you see that? Right.
Ah,
Yeah, those are pretty. They're all throughout the green. I mean, the colors of spring really are remarkable, right? Like that purple with the green is beautiful. And then we have these dandelions. I guess these are considered weeds, but I think they're pretty.
I do too. Got some trees down.
Where is there? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Ooh.
Well, I guess from all that rain we got, I guess the roots. I don't know how long it's been like that. Oh, this is beautiful. We have the forsythias are out.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Gorgeous
these
color.
are Beautiful, but they don't last long, They come and they go. It's all fleeting. And then it's been cold, so the rest of it, it's still, it still hasn't blossomed yet. So the flowers are little by little coming out in New York over here. This is East Hampton, New York. It's a little colder here than near the city because we're surrounded by all this water. So
Could
it's
you
a
go
little-
back to the forsythias just for a second so I could take a
sure.
picture? Thank you.
Yeah, look at this.
They're
Look at that.
beautiful. The
This
coloring.
Yeah, look, this relates so nicely to Alma Thomas, who did those swatches. You
Yeah.
could imagine just that pink with the azalea. You could imagine just doing just yellow. Look how beautiful that is,
Yeah.
right? You can make just a yellow painting.
Okay.
I had fun giving this talk and I had fun researching it because I'm not gonna lie, I'm a city girl. I'm not I'm not a nature girl. And I was like, it gave me an appreciation of how beautiful it is when you're outdoors and
Thank, thank you, Joyce.
take time to smell the roses, as they say, right? So any closing thoughts? Okay. So I do invite you to go to pkhouse.org for the rest of the series. It's all free. We have one about animals in art and all sorts of fun topics coming up, okay? So
Where do you, can you give me the information?
I will put it in the chat right now. Yeah. And then I'm gonna have to go because I have to make a phone call. So it's pkhouse.org. Okay, Linda? Well, that's to
Thank you.
everybody. I should have sent it to everybody. Just go to pkhouse.org, go to the events page, and you can sign up for all the other programs. Okay?
Okay,
So I'm
thank
so
you.
glad it was so popular today. Have a wonderful day or evening and appreciate all the beauty wherever you are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you, Joyce. Bye.
Thank you,
Joyce.
Joyce.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Nice class. Thank you.
I miss when I miss you